Today is the 4th of June, and on the 1st of June is the official start of the British summer. So we are now in early summer, and there are a lot of jobs to do in early summer. So I'm going to take you through the chores that we do in early summer. Now there's lots to do, and the main jobs we do in early summer is pruning. Again, excuse the planes. I recently did something for the BBC, and I'll tell you more about it. I could be appearing on Gardener's World, so when it happens I will tell you all about it. So the planes remind me of filming for the BBC, and they didn't like the planes at all because they had to stop every 2 minutes. But anyway, we are used to it, and you are very long suffering, and you bear up and keep me quite relaxed about the noise. So let's talk about summer jobs. Early summer is a time when everything has grown since the spring. Our spring starts around the end of March, early April. So lots of growth takes place. So as an example, look at this. This is a type of European ash, and this long shoot, which is over 12 inches or over 30 centimeter long, has grown in the last 2 months. Wherever we look, you will find that things have grown. If I turn around here, these are crab apples, and look at the shoots here. These shoots are about 3 foot long, 90 centimeter long, and this is all grown in the summer. These tridents have been pruned already once. It was pruned in May, and this is another about 8 inches, about 20 or 25 centimeter long in the last 1 month. So there's a lot of pruning to do. A lot of people ask me, why don't I prune all the time? There is a reason for everything. So this tree, I have let it grow. Generally, the general principle to my mind or to my way of thinking is that I let them grow so that it strengthens the tree. If you keep pruning them every time a shoot grows about 1 centimeter, you prune it off, it will not have chance to produce the food in the leaves to feed the tree. So I let it grow that long, and then I prune it back. And how much do I prune? As a rule, you can keep, if you come close, you will see that this has had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 sets of leaves, 5 pairs of leaves. So you can either prune to 2 new leaves there, or back to 1 node, because the leaves have done their job, and that's what you do. But that is only the rule of thumb. What I do generally is to have a rough idea as to the shape of the tree. And because the shape of the tree is paramount with bonsai, I try to look at it from that point of view. So again, if I may look at the general shape of the tree, you can't go far wrong. I just generally do that. Now you may ask me, how do I know that I've pruned back to one pair of leaves? I will check afterwards in a minute. So that's what I did in the first instance. Okay, now if you come closer, take this branch for instance. This is going outwards, this is going backward. This I can take completely off like that. And this I will wire to get the shape of the tree. So that is okay. This is also okay. You notice that because I did a rough cut, I've got a long stem there. Again, I've mentioned before that most people cut back to the pair of leaves, but I've cut there. I take the halfway house. That means I leave about, how much is that? What we call half an inch. Like so, we leave that to die back to that point. Like that, it dies back to that point. So that is how I deal with all the cuts. And this tree needs to be wired out, so I don't have the wire with me. So this will be wired out like this to create that eventual shape. If there are too many branches, then I will cut some of them just for cosmetic reasons. So that is how I would prune this tree. Now let us look at this trident maple I showed you just a minute ago. This trident maple, if you notice the top, it has become a bit flat, and I want to create a more apical dominance here to get a more cone shape. So I'll encourage more leaves to go over there. But all these shoots, which have now done their job, I will cut off. I will then go into the branches to see whether the pads are being formed properly or not. Of course, being early summer, there are lots of weeds on the nursery. That is the bane of my life. The weeds are so prolific that we spend more time weeding the pots of the bonsai than doing anything else. So that's a long shoot, so that cut off. So you see, I've brought it back to shape, and now I'm trying to encourage more to grow there. Where there are dead branches, I will eventually cut it off, so that is being prepared like that. And as for these big crab apples, now that they've done the work, let's have a look at this one. Again, in a situation like this, if you look at these shoots, if you come close, all these are this year's growth. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 14 leaves here. So what I need to do is only keep a pair of leaves. If you leave it too long, unless you want to grow the tree bigger, it will lose the shape. So I need to bring it back to its shape, because the original shape has already been set. I can wire some of the branches to make it look more credible as a bonsai. So again, I will do a halfway house like that. With flowering trees, you can't be too ruthless with the pruning, because if you prune too hard, you will remove all the flower buds for next year. So the new shoots need to be kept to encourage the flowers to form. I notice here that these are what we call suckers from the base. These I need to take off, because if you don't take these off, all the energies will go to the base and the top will get neglected. So this is going upwards. I'll take that out. So you see, I can also do some wiring. I'm not doing wiring on this video because this is not the point of this video. So this is roughly the shape. So this is how I would prune in early summer. So that's a prune one. This is one which has not been pruned. So you see the difference. You see the long shoots here? This has not been pruned. So this will become like that. So that is the pruning I will do for the crab apples. Now let's look at some other subjects, because there's so much pruning to do. As I walk around, wherever you turn, there are pruning jobs to do. Now this is my famous privet that was dug up from the toilet, what we call the loo privet. So again, a lot of these new shoots are sprouting. So you see the flowers are even forming. I don't want the flowers to form. I just want to prune to shape. Now that I've created the shape, I just want to keep the shape. You will get some of these so-called rogue shoot. Look at that long shoot. It's nearly 45, 50 centimeter long, all grown in the last month. So to keep control of that. So keep the pads. I know the flowers smell nice, but I will prune the flowers off, because this tree is grown for the shape only. And I want to form a more dense top, so I'm going to encourage this to grow. I don't want too much to grow here, because if all the energies go here, nothing goes to the top. So I've got to be careful of that. I've got to be careful about some of this wiring, because if I don't want the wire marks to remain on the branches, I will have to take the wire off. So this is a good time, because this wire was left on from last year. So if any of the wires are biting, this is the time to remove the wire. And I know that a lot of people cut it. Keep the camera phone in there. Usually when people remove the wire, there are several ways of doing it. You can either just use the wire cutter and cut the wires off. I will show you what people do, but this is not what I do. So they will cut the wires off like this. So you'll get myriads of little wires like this cut off. That's the easy way of doing it, but I prefer not to do that. I don't see the point in wasting wire, so I take the trouble to unwind the wire and reuse the wire. Even if I don't use the wire myself, I give the wire to lots of other people who can't afford wire. They come to the nursery, we give it to them for them to use, so the wire doesn't go to waste. So sometimes when it gets embedded, you have to be careful how you take it out. So this is what we do. We unwire it like this, and then we will reuse that wire. So that's the only piece of wire on that one. But this I have to develop the head much more. If the branches are hiding the beauty of the trunk, I will take some of those shoots off so that you can see the trunk more clearly. So again here, like that crab apple, we have the situation where the suckers are growing. I don't want all the energies to go to the bottom. You see how vigorous these shoots are? Well, I'll have to take those off. So we got to look at the entire tree. Okay, so much for this period. Let's see what else we can find. So over here there are some more of this European ash. So again we do the same thing. So I go around and literally prune everything that is getting a bit too long. Now, while we're talking of deciduous trees, let us go and look at another tree. I'll take you into the greenhouse. Come with this. This is a very interesting plant. Very interesting subject, because this was an air layering we started last year, probably in June. And in the space of 2 or 3 months, the air layering took. Can you see the moss is still there? And that's where it was cut off. So this is a new air layering, and look at all the shoots. Look at this, more than 2 foot long in just 1 month. And this was all done last year. So the shape of the tree is there. You can even use this as the front, or this as the front. If that is the front, I can probably cut that off eventually and let it grow. And if I want to make a strong lead, I will continue to let it grow. So I'm not going to cut it that much. I just cut enough so that it doesn't get too long that it'll break this. So I want to encourage that to grow. This I can cut back. This is going the wrong direction because I want it to grow that way. And that one is going backwards. I don't want it to go backwards, so I will cut that off, and hopefully that's a new shoot to go that way. And that's how I form the new taper. So this is what I do with a new air layering. So even the air layings have to keep control of it to make sure that they're developing in the right way. So within the space of 1 year, I've got a complete bonsai from air layering. Now throughout the nursery, wherever you look, you'll find that we have a lot of shoots on a lot of deciduous trees. And if I want to restyle some of these big Chinese elms, for instance, I'll leave them to grow long, and I will then create a shape that I want. Now there's another interesting subject here. If you stay out here, you can film I'll go there. This is a large trident maple root over rock. Now this one, I've deliberately let it grow like this, but I need to create a new apex here. And this part died, unfortunately. So if I don't want this to grow anymore, I cut those off, cut these off. But because I want to encourage the apex, I'm going to let this part grow. But this part I may not want to grow, so I cut that off. Cut that off. So I'm going to concentrate all the effort over here. And of course, if I want to grow it vigorously, I'll have to feed it. And feeding is going to be another video I will do very shortly. Because at this time of the year, there are certain jobs we have to do, and they have to be done at the right time of the year. So this is going to be a potential leader, one of these. So I'm going to leave those two. So everything else I'll cut back to maintain the shape And this was repotted this year. An ideal time for making cuttings, so shoots like this, when the wood has become semi-hard. This is what we call semi-ripe wood. That means it's this year's growth which has become hard, and that's a heel cutting. So that would make an ideal cutting like so. Insert that into soil and that should root. So nothing is wasted. So if you want to propagate, this is a very good time to propagate. May and June are one of the best times of the year to do propagation. So now let's look at some of the other subjects. Let's turn to the conifers. Now this is a yew, one of the big yews, and it has been kept inside the greenhouse throughout the winter. And because it was kept inside the greenhouse, you can see all this very lush growth. It didn't need to be kept in the winter, but we've kept it in the winter because it gets some protection. And the last year, 2022, 23, and 23, 24 was not such a harsh winter, but the previous winter was very harsh. So because of the harsh winter, I decided to protect this one. I noticed that some of the wire has started to bite, so I have to be careful. And I'm going to remove some of these wires so that it doesn't form too many difficult marks. So these wires will be removed. I don't want to waste time showing you how to remove wire. Shoots that we don't want, we will take off completely. So this is wanted, so we keep this here. Now that this has grown about 6-8 inches, I can cut back to about here, leave about 1 or 2 inches of that. So that will feed into the tree. This will feed into the tree, and it will keep the design shape that was originally intended. So all that long growth, prune it off, back to shape, back to shape. I could have easily cut everything off as soon as they appeared, but you can see the logic. We leave it to grow for a while so that it feeds into the tree, gives the tree a chance to get nourishment from the new growth, and then when you've had enough growth from there, we cut it off. Now there'll be a second spurt of growth from there, so all is not lost. It will continue developing shoots to feed the tree. So now we are pruning to shape. Let me just complete this to give you some idea. Look at this, very long shoots. I want you to make note of what I'm doing because I'm going to take you in a minute to some other yews that were not protected in the greenhouse, but the nature and character of the new growth is quite different from the growth that you see on this plant. Not everyone has a greenhouse like this, where you can grow the things in greenhouse, because if you grow in a greenhouse, you get the advantage of a longer growing season. But the disadvantage is that if you keep growing it in a greenhouse for too long, the shoots get very weak and the tree doesn't become strong. So next year, after pruning, I'm going to take it out, and next year it's going to stay outside throughout the winter. Unless, of course, it gets so cold that I'll have to give some protection. So we're going to get more detail from this. And because this was one of Kevin's creations, when Kevin comes next, I'm going to get him to add his touch to cut off any branches that he thinks are not necessary. So I brought it back to shape like this. So can you see how much I've cut from that one? Now let's move on to another lot of yews. And these are these mighty great big stumps that were carved. So shoots that are growing in the wrong place we take off. But you see, compared to the other yew, which had shoots about that long, more than 30 centimeter long, the new growth here is barely 2 inches long. But because this was growing outside, it was colder, so it didn't get hit by the frost so much, and the growth is not so vigorous. In fact, looking at this tree, because it hasn't grown enough, I'm not going to cut it off because it may be too soon to cut. I may let this feed into the tree to strengthen the tree before I do anything. If it is unduly long, I may cut it off, but I'll let it grow a little bit. So this is not ready to prune yet, so I've got to use my discretion. Now look at this one. This one is in exactly the same spot. Exactly the same spot, but this has grown more than that one. So I can cut some of these off. You notice that I still handle my favorite Felco secateurs. And this has grown much more, so I can afford to cut back to create more ramification and density. I know I can spend hours just doing this single tree, but I'm just showing you the principle because I don't want to take up all the time just pruning one tree. I'm going to show you lots of other trees. So that's in the way. You see, we will refine it a little more. When we refine this, I'll show you a separate video on this. So you see different trees behave in different ways. Now, there is so much here. I have hardly moved more than 10 feet from here, and I've found about 10 different subjects. Let's go to let's go to this blue cedar here. This is another good example. We're going to look at some conifers for a change. We're not just looking at deciduous trees. This is a customer's tree which is here for restoration. The lower branches died, and I tried to revive the tree, and it's well on its way to recovery. So all these are new shoots. You see how the tree is so vigorous. These, don't worry, we are going to carve and make lovely driftwood gin effects from here. So I'm not cutting these off. They're deliberately kept here for carving. So these will be carved, and this will become a new design. So this tree has produced shoots which are only that long, like 2 inches long. So I will leave it for a while to let it grow to strengthen the tree, because this tree was not very strong. So I will leave it. So I won't prune it. So you don't have to prune everything. You've got to judge each tree on its merits. Those that need it, we will do it. Those that don't need it, we won't do it. So rather than just keep easily doing this, I could easily go and do that. I said to myself, maybe I should leave it because I want the tree to get strong. And as long as the shape is not going to get lost and the inner branches don't die, I will let these grow a little longer, wait maybe another month for them to develop, and then I will cut it off. So I've looked at this tree, I decided not to cut it. Now let us look at some other trees we have around here. Now this is again someone else's tree. They kept it on the nursery because they didn't want to take it back home. But this tree is a stump of a Jacqueline Hillier elm. So you can see wherever the shoots are coming out, like these suckers from the bottom, that shouldn't be there. I'm going to take them off so that they don't spoil the look. Of course, that root cutting I can take off to make a little marmy tree, so I will keep that. But shoots that are growing in the wrong place, I will certainly remove, because that was not part of the original design. So just maintain the shape, because this is a very fine foliage tree. Nothing needs to be done except keeping on top of it. So this is just going to be pruned to maintain the shape. So there's not much to be done to that. Maples also, like this tree, you see, it's only had one pruning in early May. So again, I will prune it back to just maintain the shape, to improve ramification. Not all maples behave in the same way. We will look at some other maples, and you see that they have produced more growth. Look at this one. You see this one? All those new shoots have been developed in the last month. So again, we will just go around and trim it back to shape. Just trimming back to shape, like so. And that's how we produce ramification. I'm always amused when people talk about these sophisticated ways of making ramification. Ramification simply comes by pruning the ends off, and by pruning the ends off you encourage more branching of the sub-shoots to grow. So I can't reach the back, but you can imagine I could just go around and prune all that. Some of these other ones, like this clump style, again very healthy. So again, I'm just pruning to maintain the overall shape. As long as the shape doesn't get lost, that's what I do to it. Most of these maples here have had their first pruning. The second pruning, look at this one for instance. This was pruned last month, and by pruning it last month, you've already got new shoots coming here. I won't prune these just yet because they're very tender. I will leave it to grow and then I'll wait another few weeks before pruning. This one, you must be wondering why I've left this long shoot. Maybe because I want to grow a long branch here, so I'll leave these to grow. But these shoots, okay, they've been pruned once. This is the second lot of growth. I'll probably prune this because I've got hundreds and hundreds of maples to prune. I may not have time to keep up with all the pruning, so I better keep it to shape just like that. Most of these have had one prune this year, so I'm not too worried about that. And while we're here, have a look at these seedlings. So easy to sow. Crab apples, we just throw handfuls of seed, they come up without any difficulty. While we're here, let's look at some of the pines. Now, I will talk about pines for the next few minutes. This tree was hired to one of our exhibitors at the Chelsea Flower Show. It's come back. I didn't have the time to prune the candles. So these are this year's candles. If you come close, these are candles that are produced this year. And if I want to keep the tree compact, I will have to just take the tips like that off. So you get the idea, all these long shoots, you have to literally, you notice what I'm not doing is I'm not removing the entire candle. You see, if you look at this one, there are two candles here that have emerged. I could easily take the longer one out and leave the short one, but what I do is I do what they call a halfway house. That means cut half of it off. Just cut half of it off. So it still gets a chance to feed back into the tree. And by doing that, I keep the shape and it will hopefully create more bud back further down. So this compact nature of the Scots pines comes from constantly taking the candle and controlling it by cutting half of it. So they do bud back, I'll show you. So I won't have time to go through the whole tree. So that is what I do with that one. Now let's look for some other subjects to show you. There are a lot of white pines, 5-needle pine. So this 5-needle pine has not been pruned this year. So you can see, look at it. That clutch of branches were produced last year because I didn't prune the candle. But if I want to keep it in control, I'll take the entire thing off like that so that it doesn't get too big. See all these flowers and cones, I won't let them develop. I just take it off completely, because I don't want the tree to lose the shape. So that's what I do. So I literally go around, and you notice again, I'm not taking completely off, I'm taking half the candle off. If it's spoiling the shape like that one, I can take the entire branch, the old branch out, and just deal with the ends there. So can you imagine a tree like this? It can take you at least an hour to go through every single new candle and bud and pruning it back. So we will now move on to something else. We've switched the camera on. And I'm going to show you how to prune this Hinoki cypress. This is the famous Hinoki cypress that I've owned since 1974. I've owned it for 50 years, and it came from Japan in 1962 to the UK, and it had 5 trees. One has died one died earlier, so we're left with 3 trees, and we keep trying to keep it in good health. So this is a genuinely old tree. If it's been in this country for 50 years, this tree must be touching 100 years old. I'm pretty sure of that. Okay, so one tree has died. This is going to be ginned. You wait and see what happens. But because it's not a strong tree, we've let all this growth grow and get extended. Many people don't know how to prune hinokis. Let me show you what I do. Other people may have their own ideas as to how they prune it. So this is a new shoot. I will prune up to there, like so, like so, like so. Just leave some green, what we call sap pullers, to pull the sap through, and it keeps it under control, and hopefully you'll get more bud back. So to the entire tree we leave some green and prune some of these long shoots off so that it buds further back. So that's how it's done. So that's how we do it. We never prune the thing completely. If you prune it there, that branch will die. So this entire tree we have to literally go around very carefully and take the tips out, leaving a bit of green, and that will create more density. And of course, after doing this, we have to feed. So as I said, feeding will be a subject of another video. Like junipers, we don't just shear the foliage. You don't just shear like that. We literally got to go into the wood like that and prune over there, like so, like so. Watch this very carefully because these are very difficult species to handle. So all these long shoots, that's how we do it. So the entire tree will have to be done looking at each twig like that, taking the center tip out. Look at that, that's quite long, so I'm going to do that, and maybe that as well. So we have to look at each little shoot and consider what we prune. Like that one, like so, like so. So we're going to go through the entire tree. Again, I won't waste too much time doing that. So let's move on to some other conifers. Okay, while I'm passing, this is the hollow trunk forsythia, which I often show, and it's been blooming beautifully. Now, after flowering, I didn't pull any of the flowers off, but you notice that all this new shoot, these pinky shoots, they are this year's growth since April. So ideally you can keep it back to here, but because it's a deciduous tree and it's so prolific, what I do is I literally go through the entire tree and prune to shape. I'm a very practical person. I don't go around looking at each twig and consider what needs to be pruned. I just prune back to shape, and as long as you prune to shape, it will look after itself. Deciduous trees are not as fussy as conifers. Conifers need more care in how you prune. I'm trying to look for inward growing branches, which isn't good. I haven't been able to go around the other side, but you need to prune it from every side. So we've got to go around the entire tree and prune all these long shoots. So again, as long as you prune it to shape, it'll form new shoots, and those will be the flowering shoots for next year. Another example of Scots pine, one of our favorite conifers. They're not imported pine, they're native to us. So you notice how this budback has been created from last year's candle treatment. So you can see what a lot of density it's got simply by doing the process that I described. I want to point out to you what has been done already. If you home in on the camera very carefully, you see that these shoots were already pruned earlier this year. So you see, I took half the candle off. So that's the remnant of the cuts that I pruned about a month ago. So I won't do any more. Those which I missed, I may do again. So this actually has been pruned. So looking at it, it has been pruned. I'm not going to do much more. If I do get a rogue shoot, I will take it off. But this was pruned. Let me show you ones that I have not pruned. So let's come here. Scots pines do vary considerably. Now this is a pine that we repotted, so because it was repotted, it's pretty slow in growing. So if you come in close and look at all these lovely new shoots that have come. Because the shape is pretty compact, I'm not going to touch it at all. I will just let the candles emerge. It's been a bit slow in emerging, so it hasn't made much growth. So I've got to use my judgment and a bit of intelligence and common sense. And because it hasn't grown much, I'm going to leave it to grow. Otherwise, it won't get a chance to feed the tree. If I removed it completely, I won't be doing the tree any good. It won't benefit the tree. So in this instance, I'm leaving it alone to let it grow. Let me look at another Scots one. Now, if you look at this one, again, Tyler, if you come close, this again hasn't produced a lot of new shoots, so I will leave these alone because it hasn't made much growth. So this is a case where I've had to use my judgment and I decided not to prune. If we look at this one, this great big beast of a tree, if we come close again, you will see that I did prune some of these shoots. They were pruned. I pruned to shape, and because I pruned to shape, I won't touch it again. I will leave them as they are. So that is what has been done to this tree. Now let me go to another good example of a deciduous, which is that dawn redwood. This dawn redwood has a long history. It's been on our nursery for at least 25 years, and it was made from a garden center tree over many years, and I've done 3 air layerings over the years. It was a 6-foot tree, and I took 2 big air layerings from it, so I've had 2 other bonsai made from this, and this is the bottom part, which is now going to be the final shape of the tree. So all these heavy wires are meant to keep the branches horizontal, because if left to their own devices, they tend to spring upwards. So all these long shoots which are springing upwards, I will keep. But because the ramification is quite good already, I don't want too many to go too near the trunk. So these shoots I will take off, but that I will take off. I don't want to hide the trunk, mind you. See, all these shoots which are too close to the trunk, I will take it off. They will become branches if you leave them. If you leave them unattended, they will eventually become branches, and it will cause inverse taper. So I don't want that either. So these shoots which are going close to the trunk, they come off. They can literally be pulled off. And anything which is going too long, I just now prune to shape, because the basic shape has been created already. So I don't need to do more. So this is quite okay. This again hasn't produced much growth, so I leave that alone. So we're looking at each tree to see what needs doing to each particular tree. While we're here, as you can see on the big nursery like this, you could be spending weeks and weeks just pruning and never get to the end of it. So these maples, they have not been pruned yet, but they will have to. So you can see what a lot of long shoots. If you left them like that, they will lose the shape, so I'll just prune them back to shape. And I know they need to be spaced out more, because if they don't get spaced out, you will get a lot of dieback in there. So we've got to space these trees out. And look at the trees, they're so strong. Look at this. Beautiful seeds are forming already. Let me look at larches, because I haven't talked about larches yet. Larches is a very popular tree in Britain. Many amateurs love using larches. So this tree, this famous tree, was taken to the Chelsea Flower Show and was used by Mr. Ishihara to do his Japanese garden. So this was hired out again this year, or we lend it to him. So these long shoots I will cut back. So you can see the color of the new shoots, which are lighter green. So they are ones that we cut back. And again, the general principle is to keep it in shape. Don't let it lose the shape. I also let the cones grow. Many people ask me, should you leave the cones on? I like to leave the cones on because they make the tree look attractive. And some people get the idea that cones weaken the tree. I don't believe it weakens the tree that much. The tree is able to produce enough food for itself, so why sacrifice the cones when you can appreciate some beauty in the process? So that's what we do, mainly the new shoots to come off, because they've been here for at least a month now or more. So they're going to be just pruned back to maintain the overall shape of the tree. As I said, I can't go through the entire tree, but I will. So it's again showing you the general principles of what we are doing. Now, not every larch has the same treatment, in the same way that not every bonsai is subjected to the same treatment. You've got to judge each tree on its merits. I'm now going to explain to you how I judge that. Okay, so I've got to go through the entire tree. I'm going to take you to another larch to show you what's happening to those ones. Now, I've got 3 larches here. Each one is going to be treated in a different way. Let's look at this one first. This one is the one that has this lovely lichen that I leave on because some people like the look of the lichen. It doesn't seem to damage the tree. So, and you see these new cones, these are the old cones. The old cones can stay on the tree for years and years. These are new cones which have set, again very pretty. So because this is a fairly strong tree, I will just take the new shoots off, like so. And by doing that, hopefully you get more ramification. It'll bud back further. So all the new shoots come off. And you can tell the new shoots because they got a slightly different color, lighter color. As I say, you can use ordinary twig shears or secateurs or whatever to do that. So that's the general idea. And they got this lovely fragrance. All conifers have lovely fragrance. I sometimes prune into old wood if it is spoiling the shape of the tree, but as a rule, it's just the new shoots that I'm going to take off. Now, if we look at this one here at the back, that's a very old larch, and we repotted this, but it's where the shoots are spoiling the shape, I just take them off to maintain the shape. So I may grow a little more here, so I'll leave that to grow. These I don't need, I'll leave this to grow. So that is far too long, so they come off. So it's just maintaining the shape on this one. So that's what I do with that. Now I come to yet another one. This is my very famous windswept larch. I made this tree back in 1974, 50 years ago. It was first a windswept style, and now it's become a semi-cascade. Because it's such an old tree, it's getting a bit weak. So I'm going to leave these new shoots to strengthen the tree. I'm not going to touch this at all. Sometimes you have to leave it alone. So some people will come in the nursery and say, oh, why is this tree looking so untidy? There's a reason for it. I'm leaving it because the tree is not that strong. So I'm leaving the shoots to grow, to feed back into the tree, to make the tree strong again. And maybe in the autumn, when it's done its job, I may prune some of these back. So this one is not going to be pruned at all. So while I'm sitting down here, I know a lot of your viewers or my YouTube viewers are very observant. I don't know whether they've noticed what has happened to my hand. I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't suffer accidents. But about 7 or 8 days ago, I was cooking in the kitchen and I tried to open a jar, a glass jar, and the top of the jar broke. And when the top broke off, my hand still went into the rest of the bottle, and it made 2 deep, half-inch deep cuts, inch long, across my hand, and it couldn't stop bleeding for about an hour. I had to be rushed off to hospital, and I spent one day having it dressed, and then the second day 3 plastic surgeons had to stitch it up under anesthetic. I was taken into theatre, and 7 days ago it was stitched up, but today I had the stitches removed, so it's healed very fast. I won't mention the culprit or the company's bottle in case I get sued, but I don't know what will happen, but it's caused me pain and suffering. So for the past week I haven't been able to use my hand. So that was not a good experience. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Oh, I haven't finished yet. One last thing about wisterias. Now, again, if you come to the nursery, I sometimes let some of these bonsais grow like this. So this is a very good example of what happens to wisterias. This is a pink wisteria, and because it's finished flowering, look at it. About 4 foot or 6 foot long shoots have grown. This is how they grow. This is how they grow. This has literally grown in the last week, that long. The leaves haven't even opened. So what would I do with that? I do nothing. I let it grow first. Let me go to some bonsai and I will show you how I deal with the bonsai wisterias. Many people don't understand the pruning of wisterias. Now this is a bonsai wisteria, and if you look at it, look at this, that long, it's over 1 meter long. And I'm going to leave it to grow for a while because I want the new leaves to form to feed the tree. And you can already see, this is the new growth from here, the green part. These plump buds are the buds that will produce the flowers for next year. So I'm going to encourage these buds. So eventually I will cut it back to about there. I'll leave 2 or 3 inches for next year's flowers to form. That's how I'll do it. But meanwhile, I will leave this to grow for another couple of weeks to strengthen the tree. So the general principle is don't rush to prune all the time. You need the foliage to feed back into the tree. So many of these wisterias too, they finished flowering. You can cut the dead seed heads off because we don't want to collect the seed from it. If you want to collect the seed, by all means, let them grow. But you can cut the old racemes off because they're doing nothing. And if you wait another couple of weeks, it will start producing these long shoots that have formed on the other tree. I notice here that there is a sucker growing from the bottom of this tree. Look, that's what we call a sucker. You can make a new plant from it. I might dig it up and make a new plant, but if I don't want that, I will let it be cut back. So, now this one has again, you see, produced these long shoots. Look at these long shoots from here. I'm going to let it grow, produce leaf, and then cut it back to about 2 or 3 inches. But I don't cut them off straight away. I leave them to feed the tree. So that is the general principle of how we prune, especially the deciduous subjects, because at this time of the year, in early summer, that's when they produce a lot of growth. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video. The next video I'm going to do is to show you how we fertilize our trees, because that's the next chore or next job that we have to do.